I'm originally from Dorset, but I'm now living in Oxfordshire. And in 2016, I wrote Robbie the Brown Long-Eared Bat. And you can see he's got these big, massive ears. I think he's rather cute and appealing. He's a type of bat we get in the UK. And his ears are so sensitive, he can hear insects walking on a leaf. So that's my book. My first experience of a bat. You know, I was quite late to bats. When I was younger, at your age, even as a teenager, I was scared of bats. You know, I used to think they flew in your hair. I believed all those myths. But now, since doing some work for Dorset Bat Rescue and Dorset Wildlife Trust, and as I've continued to learn more about bats, I realise that's not true, and they're amazing little creatures. So my first experience was probably when I was volunteering in my 20s for Dorset Wildlife Trust and Dorset Bat Group. Yeah.
My name's Emma Reynolds. I wrote and illustrated Amara and the Bats. Oops, I'm on Mirror, but I hope you can recognise it. So I wrote this book because I realised there's hardly any books about bats. There's a handful, and I wanted to make a book all about how amazing bats are, how important they are to the whole ecosystem, and so vital and also so cute. And it's been wonderful seeing people's reaction to the book, and that people have put up their own bat house. That was like all I could have dreamed of. So I really appreciate all of that. So my first experience of a bat was probably just seeing them when we were camping. We used to go camping in Cornwall every summer. And also I have a very strong memory of me and my mum making this little cuddly bat out of a sewing kit, and then I insisted that it must have Velcro on its bottom so that it could hang upside down because it's a bat, and that actually appears in the book as well.
I'm Raahat, and I'm the author and illustrator of I'm Not Scary, just over here. My first experience with a bat will be my early childhood. My childhood home is right next to a copse of trees, and I remember on those summer evenings just seeing the bats darting across the sky, and it was always so difficult to see them as the sun was setting, and I'd always be a bit apprehensive about thinking, what is that? It's quite scary. But yeah, they've been a solid memory in our childhood, me and my siblings, and we used to like to sit in the trees and watch them. It's really nice to have been able to illustrate and write about bats in my picture book.
I'm Rose. I work for the Bats in Churches project, and we have, Diana and myself, have written a book. We weren't supposed to write a book. We work with churches with bats. As we know, bats eat a lot of insects. They produce a lot of droppings, and that can cause problems in churches. So that's really what our job is. But as part of it, we decided we were going to produce the little church bat, a little bat called Mo, who is a soprano pipistrelle. And it's actually based on a real life story of one of our churches. We just wanted to get that message out in a really simple way. So it's been a very steep learning curve for myself and Diana, because we're not writers or illustrators or book producers or anything at all.
We are now. Started this time last year, we weren't. So yes. So this is our first little book that's come out as part of the project. So that's been really, really interesting in doing that. I don't know my first memory of bats. My first experience with lots of bats was when I used to work up in Scotland, a place called Haddow House. And we had about 400 pipistrelles that lived in what used to be the stables, but was now a little National Trust gift shop. So partly you could see hundreds and hundreds of them coming out as you were leaving work if you'd had a late day at work. And also I was one of the few people who wasn't frightened of them. So I spent a lot of my summer rescuing them from behind boxes of fudge and inside mugs, where they decided to escape from their roost and end up in the gift shop during the day. We spent a lot of time gently picking them up and popping them on trees outside in the shade until they could go back in the roost at night. So that's one of my really, really vivid memories of bats before we started working with them in churches.
And I remember my first experience of bats was on holiday as a child. We stayed in an old water tower, which is like a big round thing that used to store water, and it's been converted into a holiday cottage. And a bat got in one evening, and I was probably about 8 or 9. I just remember being fascinated watching it flying about and quite worried about it. And my mum was really frightened of it, but I wasn't. And I think my love of bats started from there.
When I was living in Dorset, I used to volunteer for Dorset Bat Group. and East Dorset Bat Rescue and Rehabilitation. I'm a licensed bat worker. I'm Class 2 licensed. That means I can actually handle bats. And often I would volunteer for Sally at EDBRR, so East Dorset Bat Rescue. And we'd be called out to go and rescue a bat. Often baby bats, known as pucks in the summer, are always up to mischief. They're always falling into places they shouldn't be. So we're getting into our busy time of year now. And I'd be called out to go and collect the bat, take him back to the bat carer. And I remember one evening, a little pipistrelle had fallen into a lobby of a school. So I collected him, took him to Sally, and then he rehabilitated for a few weeks and he was sent outside back to the school with his little roost. And I remember thinking at this time, there's not much, exciting, positive promotional material for bats for children. And I had this idea to write a book, and that's really where the idea came from working as a bat worker and volunteering as a bat worker. And it took a long time to get pen to paper. And I remember one October after bat season, I had a few weeks spare, and I thought, right, let's give it a go. And Bobby has, is the result. So
I think it always starts for me with a character. So I drew a pencil sketch of Amara that ended up being this part in the title page. And I thought, oh, she looks like she's looking up at something. And I thought maybe she's looking up at a bat. And then it just came from there. And then once I kind of decided to make this book, I did lots and lots of research about bats and learned all the even more amazing things about them. It just went from there. And I had I have an amazing agent who got me in front of the editor who said yes, and then she made it like 10 times better book than it ever could be, and it just blossomed from there. It's a team effort behind the scenes to make a book. It takes a lot of time and a lot of work, a lot of back and forth. I'm really pleased with what we made, and I also just really wanted to have a tangible things people could do in the back as soon as they read the story. I wanted to have all of the things they can do at home, like put up a bat box, all the helpful links, how you can rewild your garden, and I just wanted it to be something people could take action with.
So, similar to Emma, I think because we've got some illustration background, for me it started with a character. So a couple of years ago, about 3 or 4 years ago, I did illustrate a little bat character, mainly for Halloween because it was that time of the year and autumn's my favourite season. So I did an autumnal Halloween character, and it was this old illustration of mine of a cozy bat character. And that was purely just for fun. It was some personal work. And then fast forward a couple of years, I thought I really want to do something with this character because I liked this idea of a cozy bat who loved baking, and just this silly idea. And with my agent, I discussed it, and we came up with this idea of a bat that loves to bake, and he wants to share this with his friends, but all of the animals in the forest are terrified of him because they've never really met a bat because they come out at night. And then together we came up with I'm Not Scary. I changed the character ever so slightly to make it a little more, look a little younger than the previous illustration. So this is just a fiction story about a bat that's trying to make friends, but they're all terrified of him because of their stereotypes and their fears.
And we had one of our pilot churches, All Saints in Braunston in Rutland, had some very successful bat mitigation, which basically keeps the bats in the church building but stops them actually getting into the church and pooing everywhere. So we thought that perhaps this would make a really nice children's story. So they're basically talking about bat poo. That's what we're talking about. So I think, Dinah, are you able to share some of the...
Oh, well, yeah, I'll just hold the book. It might be easier rather than me trying to faff about and share my screen.
Here
we go. So that's the picture of the bats flying around in the church. These are from Chris Shields, who's our absolutely wonderful illustrator. And so this is based on photographs of the actual church. So this was very much a story that came from real life. We didn't have to make a huge amount of it up, although we did change some of the characters in it in terms of the people. But everything that happens actually in the church is something that really happened, which makes working the plot out a little bit easier.
So it was based on a real life situation, but of course we did make up the conversations between the little church bat Mo and her friends. But they probably do talk to each other like that.